The Dominican Republic was about to launch itself into the world as a primary location for Hollywood films. And then came out Star Wars and just messed it all up.
How so?
Well, it all started with Charles Bludorn, an American billionaire of Austrian descent. He founded Gulf and Western, a conglomerate with its hands in, well, everything, from car parts, computer games, even beauty competitions, movies, and sugar. But Bludorn had two passions, movies and the Dominican Republic. In 1966, Gulf and Western bought Paramount Pictures and produced some of the film classics, such as The Godfather and Indiana Jones. He also produced television shows like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. In 1967, Bludorn acquired the South Puerto Rico Sugar Company, which, although it said Puerto Rico, had its main operations in the Dominican Republic. Soon he bought more and more things here in the country, and he became the largest landowner, employer, and taxpayer in the nation. So it could be argued that during this time, the Dominican Republic was a branch of Gulf and Western. When the question arose of where the scenes of Havana in the sequel to The Godfather could be shot, Bludorn knew just the perfect place, Santo Domingo. So it was then that the Cuban scenes in The Godfather Part 2 were shot here, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. The Godfather 2 thus became the first Hollywood movie that filmed a few scenes in the Dominican Republic. So, Bludorn decided to transform the Dominican Republic into a global center for tourism and cinema. He turned his mansion in La Romana into the lush Casa de Campo Resort and built a tourist attraction on the Chabón River, which they called Altos de Chabón. And in 1977, he brought the Miss Universe competition to Santo Domingo to call more attention to the country with a huge show, making sure that he showed the DR in all of its glory.
Desde Santo Domingo, Blanca Aurora Sardinia. Buenas noches.
Bienvenidos, damas y caballeros. Estoy muy feliz de estar en uno de los países más lindos del mundo, la República Dominicana.
In addition, he invited several of his friends to support the event, from Oscar de la Renta, famous for his clothes, Cantinflas, famous for his films, and even Uri Geller, famous for, well, bending spoons.
He also invited Hollywood filmmakers to show them the country and its potential as a location for films. Bludorn needed only one successful movie that could demonstrate the potential of the Dominican Republic as a filming location, besides Santo Domingo.
Now, at that time, Francis Ford Coppola was in pre-production for a jungle war movie. Coppola asked his friend George Lucas to direct this project, but Lucas was very busy with some other small project, so Coppola decided to direct it himself. This movie became Apocalypse Now, and Coppola shot it in the Philippines, and no, not in the Dominican Republic. But a rival of Coppola, William Friedkin, was also in pre-production for a jungle movie. Thanks to Bludorn and the funds from Paramount, Friedkin decided to shoot his new movie, Wages of Fear, in the Dominican Republic, a remake of the French film Wages of Fear.
And so it came to pass that in 1976, Hollywood was producing 3 films that many saw as potential financial disasters. Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola, which was being shot in the Philippines, Wages of Fear by William Friedkin, that was shot in the Dominican Republic, and another weird little indie movie by that George Lucas guy.
Wages of Fear became the first Hollywood film almost entirely shot in the Dominican Republic. Apart from some scenes in Paris, Jerusalem, New Jersey, Mexico, and New Mexico, most of it was filmed in the eastern province of La Altagracia. Using what was available, they built several sets to represent the fictitious town of Porvenir, with an airport and an oil well, which was then blown to pieces. Although the plot does not say which Latin American country it represents, possibly Ecuador or Venezuela, for anyone watching the film, it is clear that it was shot in the Dominican Republic. Now, filming a movie in the Dominican Republic in the 1970s, in a small town in La Altagracia, that was not easy. The film crew had many problems. Besides daily conflicts, a hurricane destroying sets, the team falling ill with malaria and other ailments, several members of the team had to be replaced, and several scenes had to be reshot. For example, here the central scene of the trucks crossing a bridge, they built the bridge at a cost of about $1 million, but then the river dried up, so they moved the entire bridge and vehicles to a river in Mexico at the cost of, yet another $1 million. That river dried up too, with locals blaming the film crew. Friedkin had to bring in water hoses to simulate the torrents and a helicopter hover overhead to create the winds. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Coppola did not fare much better. The local difficulties and diseases and budget increases, they were even worse. Both Coppola and Friedkin ran out of money, and Coppola later asked his friend George Lucas for a loan, while Friedkin asked Paramount, that is, Blue Dorn. But Friedkin almost got into a mess with Blue Dorn when he used a photo of Blue Dorn and the Gulf and Western executives in the film as sort of the bad guys of the movie.
4 men take an incredible chance, face an impossible challenge, and risk the only thing they have left to lose. Roy Scheider, in a new film by William Friedkin, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Now, Wages of Fear is not a bad movie, although I don't like its overall viscerality. However, the cinematography and staging is excellent, demonstrating the versatility of the Dominican Republic as a location for action movies in the jungle. It is also a vivid representation of the Republic in the 1970s, especially of the Dominican East. That's why the film could have definitely drawn Hollywood's attention to the Dominican Republic. Sure, some are gonna say that the only thing you see is poverty and jungle, and that's not a very positive representation for the country. First of all, Friedkin and his team exaggerated the poverty as much as possible to demonstrate the hell in which the characters live, and one has to see it with the eye of a filmmaker. Scenes like these are very difficult and expensive to stage in Hollywood. Being able to have so many extras and sets together at a much lower cost than the United States, that's the dream of any filmmaker. And Blue Dorn knew that. No doubt this movie could be the launch of the Dominican Republic as a cinematic destination. Because as they say, La República lo tiene todo.
Now, Friedkin finally managed to release the film in 1977, but Coppola needed another while until 1979. Now, meanwhile, George Lucas had also finished his little indie flick. You may have heard of it.
Star Wars. Lucas released Star Wars 1 month before Wages of Fear with a nearly immediate and unprecedented success. When Wages of Fear hit theaters, Star Wars was still dominating, and nobody really wanted to see the other one. Also, for some reason, it was decided to change the name in English from Wages of Fear to Sorcerer, and many expected it to be a horror or supernatural movie, which it is not, so that caused confusions and disappointments. Paramount forced some theaters to show Sorcerer instead of Star Wars, but when no one went to see Sorcerer, they took it down and put Star Wars back on. They included the trailer for Sorcerer before Star Wars, but nothing. The film received almost no recognition and was an epic failure at the box office. It was nominated for an Academy Award for sound editing,
For Sorcerer.
which it lost
The winners are Don McDougal
to Star Wars. The truth is, few actually remember this movie today, although everyone remembers Apocalypse Now and, Star Wars is kinda well known. But thanks to these two, Sorcerer, so to speak, disappeared. The failure of Wages of Fear, Sorcerer, that really hurt Paramount, and especially Blue Dorn. Unhappy with its failure and the difficulties the shoot had in the Dominican Republic, Blue Dorn stopped backing the country as a film location. That's why 3 years later, Paramount decided to use Hawaii for a new George Lucas movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And years later, Hawaii was again used in Jurassic Park, even for the scenes in the Dominican Republic, instead of actually filming it in the Dominican Republic. It took many years until Hollywood took the Dominican Republic seriously again as a viable location for movies, and then using only Santo Domingo to represent Cuba. And so it came that Star Wars killed Sorcerer and the film industry in the Dominican Republic.
Sorry about the mess.
Que lo que mi gente, I'm Alec, thank you for watching this episode, I hope you enjoyed it. I don't want to speak ill of Star Wars, but if it had not overshadowed Sorcerer, I think that the Dominican Republic would have become a prime location for Hollywood. And with more support from the outside, maybe the local Dominican cinema would have had more chance to establish itself a lot earlier. Digo yo. Also, here's a curious fact that in 2015, it all happened again. When The Force Awakens came out, it eclipsed all other Dominican movies, including one that, in my opinion, is one of the best ones so far, Los Fabulosos Ma Mejores. And I'm not just saying that because the director's a friend of mine or because he supports us on Patreon. Do you support us on Patreon yet? No? If not, here's your chance. You get special access to episodes and other things, so please hit that support button. If you want to learn more curious facts about the island of Kiskeya, its history, and cool places, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that little bell to get notified of new releases. We publish videos in Spanish on the weekends and the English version during the week. So, see you all next time. Abur mi gente.